So this episode comes from an email inquiry that recently came in from a client from Belgium. They're a little bit green-fingered and they asked what are they going to be able to grow in their garden when they move here to Spain in a couple of months' time. So this week's episode of 2 Minute Tuesday is a bit of a homage to Gardener's World. So welcome to episode 140 of 2 Minute Tuesday with Hondon Valley Homes, where we talk everything garden-based. So what actually grows in the Hondon Valley? Now, it's a great question, actually, especially with the current cost of living crisis that we're all sort of going through at the moment. Now, with many of the villas here in Hondon having sort of 10,000 square metre plots or very large plots, which is almost the equivalent of a couple of football pitches of land, it's a shame not to take advantage of all of this space. And even if you have a much smaller plot, say 500 square metres, there's still no excuse not to have a small veggie patch somewhere in the garden that can help with the costs of the food that you have. Now, firstly, the Hondon Valley itself is an agricultural area, for those of you that know it. And as such, the fields are full of a really wide variety of crops. And generally what grows in the field should grow in your garden without too much of a problem. Now, growing in sight of my home here, we can see pomegranate plantations, we've got almond groves, we've got vineyards for both wine and eating grapes, we have pear orchards, apricot orchards. My friend Francisco has got the fig plantations over in the distance. Of course, we have almonds and olives, which Spain is famous for. And on the other side of the valley, we have all of the citrus groves. So we've got all the oranges and lemons and clementines. We've got pomegranates. It goes on and on. In the fields themselves, you'll find crops like onions, broccoli, tomatoes, artichokes, cauliflower, lettuce, leafy greens, and these are all grown commercially, some of them for some of the big supermarkets like Mercadona. So as you can see, the valley itself is a really rich and fertile place, not only to live but also for the farmers. And when you live here, you'll see that the farmers are busy all year round tending to the fields and the crops. There's not much livestock actually in the area. The only livestock that you'll find really is the pastor, the shepherd, with his flocks of goats and sheep. And when the farmers have picked the onions or headed the broccoli plants, things like this, then the goats will go in and they will eat what's left. And fortunately, they'll fertilise as they go along. So it's a very good economy with the goats going in and cleaning up. So we've spoken about what grows commercially in the fields surrounding us here in the valley, but what do we actually grow in our gardens? Now, my wife is an awful lot more green-fingered than me, so I should thank Mrs. B for all the food that comes out of our garden. But we grow an awful lot of food actually here at our villa. We have a walnut tree. In the garden. We have a carob tree. Now, carob, for those of you who don't know, these are sort of edible pods that you can grind up and it makes a sweet flour for cakes. And it was sort of a chocolate substitute many years ago. We've got almond trees, almond tree, but that gives us enough almonds to last us all year. We have something called a cherry plum tree, which we thought was just an ornamental tree until this year it supplied us with a crop of beautiful, really tasty cherry plums. We had to Google them. We have a green plum tree, which probably gave us about 100 kilos of plums this year. We've still got lots of frozen ones in the freezer. We've got an orange tree, which at this time of year the oranges are ready for picking. We've got a lemon tree. We've got fig trees, olive trees. We have kumquats, which are the small little orange citrus fruits, which are great with gin and tonic. We've got nisperos. We've got a strawberry tree, and we've even got a little pomegranate tree. I'm sure there's other things in the garden that I've missed, but you know, they're some of the plants that we have in the garden. We also sort of grow crops that we plant ourselves. So the surprising one to me is kale. I would have thought kale would have been sort of a North European winter plant, but it grows all year round here, and we have more than enough kale. We grow delicates like basil and parsley, mint, chives, coriander, rosemary, bell peppers, We have vine tomatoes, we grow the white onions that you see here in Spain, celery, strawberries, courgettes, radish, aubergines, green beans, peas. We've even grown huge butternut squash, although we didn't actually plant any. We think the seeds came in the manure that we used in the garden, either that or a bird pooped a seed which grew, and we had some fantastic huge butternut squash. We even grow chili plants in the garden. Now I'm sure I've missed out some, but it's to give you, no pun intended, a flavour of what is available, and that's just in our garden. We've got friends who grow things like corn on the cob, watermelons, even bananas, avocados, kaki, kohlrabi, my favourite, which is chirimoya, which I think our American cousins call it the custard apple, which in this instance is the perfect description because it's the sweetest fruit that you could ever wish for. Obviously, all the natural soils here, they're all incredibly fertile, with it being an agricultural area. And what you've got to make sure is that the plants that you're planting can cope with the area in your garden that you're planting them. So whether it's a sunny area or a shaded area, and you need to experiment as you do anywhere. And that's what we found. And also some of the plants don't require an awful lot of water. Some do require a bit more. So again, take that into consideration. And if you're looking to grow in your garden, a little research regarding the types of the soil, the compost, etc., will go a really long way. My wife did a huge amount of research, and it's paid off this year because she's blended the soils and the composts, and it seems to have worked incredibly well. But it's a bit of trial and error, and it's speaking to your friends, speaking to your neighbours as to what works. And that's it really, just a real quick brief insight into what you can grow here. Of course, there's going to be much more that will actually grow, and you can experiment to your heart's content to see what does and what doesn't flourish, what needs sun, what needs shade. And the best bit is whether you get it right or wrong, there's normally something very, very tasty for you to eat at the end of the day. So a nice, fun, quick episode this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. Back with another vitamin-packed episode of 2 Minute Tuesday for the next episode. So until then, bon appetit.